So this video officially marks the start of Project Ignition, and this video is going to be very introductory in nature, more of a progress update than anything. I'm thinking I'll save the deep dives for later. So yeah, let's get into it. What you see in front of you is a thrust stand. It's a very simple setup, 3D printed out of PETG. It's got a beam type load cell as a star attraction, and it's rated for 5 kilos. And that's hooked up to a green board, or more commonly known as an HX711. It's a 2-in-1 amplifier plus ADC combo. And that is then hooked up to my trusty Arduino Uno. It looks quite simple, but you know what they say, looks can be deceiving. And sure, there are different colored wires going everywhere which need to be cleaned up, but compared to this janky setup, I'm sure we can agree that this 3D printed structure is an improvement. It wasn't exactly a straightforward process either. So apart from the CAD and 3D printing, it took 172 lines of code to just get it to work. And I kid you not, 10 whole hours of serial communication debugging. I'll get to that why in a sec, but for now, let's move on to the software side of things. I'll upload the code and let's see how things look like in the serial monitor. Just before I go any further, you can see that I'm using Platform IO, not the Arduino IDE. And there's a good reason for this. Platform IO offers more flexibility and manual control, and you can take charge of more aspects of the code and how it's run as compared to the Arduino IDE. I've got nothing against the Arduino IDE, but the reason it took 10 hours of debugging, it's because the Arduino IDE, which I was using before, naturally hides or handles certain aspects in the background, and that way it unknowingly develops habits that eventually become the reason and cause you to trip up over simple things or seemingly simple things like serial communication when you jump over to a platform where you are required to do a more of a manual setup of those aspects. So regardless of where you are in your programming journey, definitely consider switching to Platform IO. Anyways, I've sidetracked a bit. So the first order of business is tearing the load cell, and currently you can see we've got no load on the system at the moment except the mass of this piece over here and the self weight of the load cell beam itself. Now the next step is going to be to place a chunk of mass whose value we already know beforehand, and in this case I've got a little D motor here, nothing fancy. We're going to be weighing this on a commercial kitchen scale, so let's put that on there. It reads about 46, sometimes 47 grams, so let's stick that on the setup. So moving on, we'll press enter over here and move on to the next step, which is asking us to enter how heavy the load we just placed is. So that's 47 grams. And you can also see a raw mass value as interpreted by the ADC, which is minus 305,258. So we'll move on ahead and values. What the unit is beats me, so let me know if you figure that one out. It's definitely not firing, so it can't be thrust. But yeah, you can see it's reading a good 46, 47, so it's got a bit of error and uncertainty, but that's nothing we can deal with. And you can also probably tell that it's not the quickest sampling rate. I mean, it's doing a leisurely 10 samples a second, and that is nowhere near enough to be doing a hot fire test with. I mean, if you had a burn time of 1 second, 10 samples is not going to get you anything. That data would be like next to useless. And it's not the code that is the limiting factor currently, it's actually the hardware. So this green board, the HX711, by default is set to a sampling rate of 10 SPS or samples per second. And while you can bump it up to 80 SPS, it involves rewiring the connection to the rate pin of this chip. And frankly, that's not something I want to fiddle with right now, messing with surface mount devices and whatnot. So I'm thinking I'm just going to upgrade to a different ADC and that'll take care of that. So yeah, it's a pretty basic caveman tier setup, version 0. I've got a few upgrades planned, for example, data logging to an SD card, which will need to happen very soon before we do a hot fire test. And I've got some code upgrades planned as well, just so it requires less user input when setting up. I want to automate some processes, so I'm pressing less buttons every time I have to fire this up. And I'm also going to be making some more videos on the code side of things, covering the high-level frameworks implemented in the current code, such as the basics of serial communication and how to talk to the ADC without needing additional libraries. So yeah, that's work in progress. I guess keep an eye out for those videos and follow along as I build up to a hot fire test with this setup. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one.